Thanks, Felicia. Hey guys, happy Friday. I'm so excited to share the earrings design with you guys today that we have. We have a beautiful design from Marta Jewelry. And if you guys, a lot of you guys already know and love her work. But if you're not familiar, she is a beautiful artist. She does so much amazing fringe earrings and macrame. And you can find all of her patterns on her Etsy shop. And we've been dropping a link in the chat to her Etsy shop. So if you want to check that out, there's so much more where this came from. The pattern I'm going to share with you today is one we named Daisy Flowers. And Marta did this for us and for teaching for this class. And she is so generous. She did a couple other patterns for us as well that we have shared earlier in the last couple of weeks that you can find. And they're gorgeous. They're all gorgeous. It's the way that she combines the colors. And then the beautiful florals are like my favorites. There's so many. She also does these like owls and like, landscapes and things. So absolutely check it out. It is just beautiful beads like made into art. And so without further ado, I'm going to jump right down to the mat because I'm going to just get my lights a little better. It's an action-packed class because fringe earrings they're a labor of love. They take a while to create. A lot of people will spend as long as maybe even 3 hours making them. Oh, hi. It looks like Marta might be here in our chat. So hi, Marta. Yay, that's so cool. And so I'm so honored to be teaching this pattern. And as I was saying, it takes a while to make these. These are, they're intricate. They take a little bit of time, but the results are stunning, as you guys would agree, I'm sure. So I'm going to just walk you through the steps really quick. So what I do for classes that are an hour that have a lot of content like this one is I kind of break it down into steps and I show the repeated parts of things enough times that you can on the replay watch it a few times and get it. And so I'm going to start by showing ladder stitch. And what I have here is a sample that I worked ahead that has the ladder part. And then I'm going to show creating basic rows of 2-drop brick stitch that are built up from the base ladder row. And they are a standard decrease right up until you get to row 6. And then at row 6, it becomes an indented decrease. So it's a decrease that has more than one step. Super easy to do. I'm going to show you how to do that as well. And then we'll make the loop at the top. So we're going to go pretty fast. It's going to be difficult to follow along unless you're really experienced. I would just recommend watching the steps come together and then trying it after class. And of course, there will be a replay available, as Felicia was saying, on Monday. The replay should be up on Michael's YouTube channel. So you can use any beads for this project, any beads that you have handy. And the really cool thing is in the pattern, if you take a look at page, it's like 6 and 7, you'll see that there are color guides that you can maybe kind of adapt to be whatever beads you would like to use. I would recommend keeping the same brands together. So like if you're working with a Miyuki Delica, use all Delicas. If you're using an 11-0 round, use all of the same brand of 11-0 round. So that you get the sizing working out, because in patterns like this, you want the beads to be roughly the same size. So your pattern will come together. I am using Miyuki Delicas that are available in Michael's, and all of the part numbers are in the handout. But I'm going to use a dark green. It's like a Kelly green. And then there's a lime green. I'm using a pearl AB white. And I'm using a luminous sun glow yellow. And I'm using silver lined gold. And so those are the colors that I've lined up, and I put them on my mat up here in order of how they appear here in the pattern, just to help me with the guide. And the cool thing is on the actual the pattern diagram, you see white, yellow, green. So that's really handy to help you. Okay, so let's dive in. For starters, we're going to be using some beading thread. Now for beading thread, any kind of like size D, whatever you like using for your fringe. If you wanted to, you could build the top with like a wildfire but I do recommend doing the fringe with something thinner, like more flowy. I'm going to just be working with our size D Nymo in a white color, but feel free to use anything that you have handy. And you're going to want to cut about 120 inches. I know that seems like a lot, but we're going to try to get the fringe part done without having to add thread. You can add thread. Adding thread is easy, but if you want to try to maybe get that done in one swoop, it is possible if you start with about 120 inches. And then what I like to do is, I'm going to show you here on this completed ladder really quick. I like to leave a 70-inch tail. And so this is the tail here all coiled up. And this is the working thread side. And so I built my ladder stitch this way, leaving this 70-inch tail that I'm later going to come back and use to make fringe. So let's start by building this row, the ladder row. And I'll talk about reading the pattern and stuff like that as well. So off camera here, what I'm doing is I'm cutting my thread. And if you have handy and you like to use it, there is thread conditioning. You can use a candle, you can use beeswax, you can use a product like Thread Magic. This is on the wall at Michael's in the tool section. And what you can do for this is I like to just bring it down, pull one side through. This is the side that's going to be threaded through my needle, and then just kind of smooth it out. The other end here, and this time I'm going to put the cat back on. Make sure I've got grooves on either side. My thread's coming through. And then just pull it. And see all the coiling we have here from having been on the spool. When you pull, it really helps with that. Takes some of that memory away. It's going to make it a lot easier for us to thread our needle too. So I'm using a size 12 beading needle. You can use a size 10. I think a 10 or a 12 will be just fine. And with Nymo, because we can't use our usual wildfire trick for threading, just kind of what I like to do is I take the thread and I just kind of make it point kind of just at the tip of your fingers, and then bring on your needle onto the thread. And it's going to be really, something you have to try a few times. It's not going to happen instantly. But just, with patience, it'll happen. You just got to kind of hold that thread there. And if you have trouble after a few tries, what I often do, if I just can't get it threaded, I'll trim the end, wax it again, and then try again. Because after a few tries, it starts to fray. See how mine's kind of coming undone there. And that's one trick that I recommend, is just, if I was going to try to thread this again, I would trim it first, and then I would take the wax and go over it again. All right, so we've got our needle threaded. I'm going to pull down a little more than I usually do because we're working with a pretty long strand here. And again, that's 120 inches of thread that I cut. And I'm going to do my ladder stitch, leaving a 70-inch tail. Okay, so let's head back to step one. So we're going to build this pattern, and we're going to build it using just a basic ladder. And you can follow it there, or if you want to see the color references, you can come over here and just put a ruler. Let me show you really quick what that looks like. Then what I'm doing off camera, because we've got such a small little field of view here, is I take my ruler and I just cover up so I know which row I'm working on. Bring up that up a little higher so you guys can see. So that's my trick for following along. And then I would come up here for row 2 and so on and so forth. All right. So for the first step of ladder stitch, we're going to go ahead and bring on the colors in this order. And let's switch back to the diagram really quick. Whatever direction your needle's heading, that's the order in which you're going to string the colors. So we're going to start with green, white, and then we're going to go green, green, and back through. And then we'll add green, white. It's going to loop through. Then we'll, of course, add white, white, loop through, come down, white, white, loop through, come down, yellow, yellow. And so it's going to go on like that, right? So I'm going to start with, again, green, white, and then 2 dark green colors. So we want to string them in that order. Bring that down. Again, we're leaving that really long tail. And then go ahead and just come back up through the first 2 beads that you strung. So here's the first 2. And when you pull tight, what will happen here is they'll sit side by side in a little square like that. And that's what you want. You want it to do that. And then come back through the second 2 beads that you strung. So we pulled tight to get that square shape. And now we're going to come back down through the first two. And pull tight. And there you go. All right, so, and again, the order we're heading, and I'm looking at my pattern off camera, since we're heading away from ourselves, we're going to pick up the dark green and then the white bead. And we're going to go back down. Our goal is always to form a loop or a square. So our thread's coming out here at the bottom of this bead. So we want to bring our needle through in the opposite direction. Create that ladder stitch there. And then we'll come back up through those beads. And you see how my loop's opening up? It's gotten a little loose there. I let that happen kind of naturally just so I can get my needle through. And then I'll hold it and I'll come back here and pull to tighten that side. And then pull these through. So let's do a few more and then I'll skip ahead to my sample that's worked because this is a lot of rows and I want to make sure I get to everything. Our next add is just 2 of the white beads. So again, we're going to come up through, heading in the opposite direction of where that thread is coming out. So come up through here and back down through the side. And let's do one more. Next in the pattern, it's just 2 more of these. And so that's basically ladder stitch right there. And again, we just keep doing that, following the pattern, the row 1 pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and get my sample that's already built and show you guys the next step. So here's the one that's finished. And I kind of make little cards. If you're like me and you have stuff worked ahead that you have to set aside, I make my own little spool cards from like business cards or just regular cardboard from the recycle bin and just use it to store so that I don't get tangles. So that's what that is there. All right, so tightening both sides. So there's my working side of my ladder row finished. And this is that super long tail over here, like 70-inch tail on this side over here. So just keep that out of the way. And let's switch back to our working thread. Let's build our first row of brick stitch. And again, I'm just getting that needle. You can see me thread a needle again here. I got lucky that time. It went right through. For the most part. Not quite. I was frayed. Okay, so let me show you guys what I do when this happens. Got a fray there. Trim it. And you can wax it again if you want. I'm just gonna, for time's sake, just see if I can get it to go. There we go. Perfect. Okay, that's good. So here's our ladder row. We're gonna want to do a brick stitch. So at the first step of brick stitch, what you're doing is you're adding the first 4 beads of that next row. So you pick those up and then you go under the second thread bridge. And let me explain what a thread bridge is really quick in case anyone's new to thread bridges. So above all of the beads, when we connected our ladder stitch row, we have connection with thread. It looks a little bit like that. So you can get under it and it's a place you can anchor. And that's the whole trick with brick stitch. We're going to pick up a white bead. We're just following the pattern for row 2 now. So a white bead, green bead, and then we need two of the white beads. I'm going to bring those down. And we're going to go under the second thread bridge, which is right here. Okay. And pull that through. And what you'll get is they're kind of just going to bunch up like that. Don't sweat it. We're going to fix that. You want to come up through the last 2 beads that you strung. So that for us is these 2 white beads. Just come back up through those two, just like that, and pull. And what you'll get is that the one that you just came up through, they're going to stand pretty straight, but you see how this one here on the side's a little bit wonky. If you look at step 3 in the handout, I'm about to show a little trick that you can use. It's a trick you only have to do at the start of each row. And it really only applies to a 2-drop brick, like what we're doing here, but it really helps. It can be done with 1-drops, but with 2-drop, it's a little bit more essential, I feel like. So go back through the last 2. These were the first 2 we strung, right? Let's go back down through those. And now pick up the first thread bridge that's above the ladder row. So the first thread bridge is the one that's above the 2 side beads there. Come under that. And then you'll want to come up through those 2 beads. And the beads you want to come up through are the second 2. Let me show you in the handout really quick, so following along with me. So we added them, we went under the second thread bridge and we came up through these 2. Then what I did is I went back down and I picked up the thread bridge, come back down. So this is really handy for making it strong and making it not like all kind of wonky on the sides. Let's go ahead and pull it through this one. And I love this moment where it all just kind of goes right back where you need it. All right, and so I'm going to go down through these beads again so I can get back where I need to go. And I'm going to go under the second thread bridge again. And to get under a thread bridge you can't see, just go between the beads. See, I'm just kind of going between those beads there. And then come up through those 2 there. And there we go. Here's our result. A really tight, strong edge. And that's going to be a lot easier to work with now going with the rest of the row. And something I wanted to point out about this pattern is it is symmetrical, meaning you could flip it and work the pattern and it would still work out because the sides are the same. Not all patterns are like that. Some patterns don't have that advantage. So you want to just double check if you're working with a different pattern. But luckily for us today, you can flip your work in your hand and it's interchangeable from the center. So like when I work row 2, I can work it this way or I could work it this way. It's just the same. I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to start building the rest of this row. We just added our first 2 columns. So the next one is going to be 2 more white beads. From here on out, we're just adding 1 column at a time. So here's our 2 white beads. We're going to go into the 3rd thread bridge now. And you notice that it did an automatic decrease. That will happen if you're working into every thread bridge 1 for 1. That will just naturally happen for you. So went under the thread bridge, coming back up through those beads. And pull tight. And let's do 1 more. Our next pattern is dark green and then white. So let's grab a dark green bead, white bead. And I'm going under the thread bridge. That is the 4th one. And notice I just kind of went between the beads. Sometimes you can pick up the thread bridge and sometimes it's a little harder to see or get under if it's tight. This one was pretty tight. But when you do this part right here and you pull up, it'll catch it. And let's come back up through those 2 beads that we just added. Just through those 2. And there we go. So I'm going to put on maybe 1 or 2 more, and then I'll show you guys the work ahead. So we've got 2 more white ones to go here. Went under that thread bridge, came up through the 2. And so we would keep doing that until we reach the end of the row. And when you reach that end of that row, you would be basically doing the same thing we did to start this one. You would do that same thing to start this one. And the same thing to start the next one, all the way through row 5. Just following the pattern, just like we're doing. And at each new start, you're picking up 2 beads going under the second thread bridge. You can optionally doing that thing to straighten out those first 2 columns and then building on for the rest of the design. So what you'll get if you do that is a beautiful finished one. That's the first 5 rows finished. So there's our ladder row. Here's the row I'm currently working on, the second row here. And I would step up, do this one. And so it takes a little bit of time, you'd get to the end of this row and you'd have 2 more to build after that, but this is what we're going for, is to have that built. Now from here, there's something different. So I wanted to make sure and stop here and show you that. So let's go ahead and set this one aside here. And I want to make sure I have lots of extra time to show you things like putting a little loop on the top and adding fringe, lots of tips and tricks there. But here is row 5 done. And let's grab the pattern. We have a decrease here. So all these other rows, what we were doing is we were building in by picking up 2, the first 2 and then the second 2 and going under the second thread bridge, right? We did that all the way up here. But now we have to go through and maneuver so that we can position these first beads above the second and third thread bridges. So it's just a 1 decrease. So not too crazy. You just have to get over 1 in order to start it. So let me show you that really quick. And again, it's a symmetrical pattern. So whatever way you're comfortable holding it, you can flip it in your hand. So before I add my new beads, I'm going to get over 1 column. To do that, I'm going to come down through this column here, right? Come down through there. And then I need to pick up the thread bridge that is above the beads that are sitting below it. You see those beads there? And again, I'm going to use my little trick where I just go between those beads right there. Just poke your needle right through them. And when you do that and you pull tight, it'll pop up and grab the thread bridge. See how you can kind of see the thread right now, but it's about to go pop right back up into the thread bridges there. Can't see it anymore on that side. And now I'm just going to come back up through those 2 beads above. And now we're where we need to be. So the first 4 beads, or the first 2 columns, are going to be all green. They're all dark green. So I'm picking up 4. And again, I'm getting that right from our pattern. This right here. It's going to be green, green all the way. And then there are two columns in the center are white and then green. So we're going to build that whole thing really quick. So let's skip to the 3rd thread bridge here. We should be working in the 3rd one. 1, 2, 3. And pull tight. And then go ahead and come up through the second 2 that we picked up. And you'll get this little bump out thing again. I'm going to fix that the same way we fixed the one in the first row. So I'm going to go down through these 2. And I'm going to pick up, in this case, it's going to be the 2nd thread bridge, right? Because we indented 1. And you can come up through this bead or you can come up through the 2nd column, whichever you'd like. You can do a little shortcut there if you want. And this little edge one, I'm just going to encourage it to turn. And there's our indent. So let's build another one here. From here on out, just 1 for 1, right? Let's put our 2 center white beads here. Carmi, it's pretty quiet. Is everyone's doing good? Usually we get questions, but
Danielle, no, sidebar is actually active and busy. I'm sad that I'm not letting you read it because Marta is being welcomed by the gang and
oh,
we've
good.
got some conversation happening. But
Awesome.
also, this is an intermediate class, so I am also holding my breath and watching you do some of the turns because it's new to me. So
Okay.
if I need to interrupt you, I will. If not, I'm going to let you keep going.
Okay, cool. I'm just gonna assume everyone's good, and unless I hear you from you. Okay. And hi, Marta. You guys, this is such a treat. This is so cool. I love that we can do this, you know? It's just so fun. And so what I'm doing here, guys, is I'm just stitching along. I'm following the pattern. I've got the pattern right here off the screen. And it's showing me that I got to finish my row here with 3 columns of all dark green. And so that's just what I'm doing. Adding these, and you're going to get to see the indent one more time because I've got to do one more indent. All right, so there's that. Okay, one more decrease. Let's show that decrease one more time. We're going to come down through. And I'm working on what is row 7 in the pattern right now. We're on row 7. And I need to grab that thread bridge, so I'm just going to go through those beads below. Just getting in between them. Grab the thread bridge. And then just come up through the same beads we went down. Goal being to get ourselves in that spot right there. Okay, so the next one, again, that's just going to be more green. We're just going to grab 4 green beads, 4 of the dark green. Third thread bridge. So there's the first, second, here's the third. And as you guys practice getting fringe earrings built like this, you'll get really good and you'll get really fast. So don't sweat it if it's taking you a minute to get started, because it does, it's knowledge that occurs quickly, I feel like. There's our edge. We're going to just straighten that out really quick. Same trick as before, going back down to the first 2, catching that thread bridge below. And I'm going to just go ahead and shortcut over here to the second set, which you can totally do. You can come back up to the first, go back down. That's how I showed it originally, just so you have the structure in mind, but you can also do that little shortcut I just shared, whichever one you like. Okay, so we've got that done. The middle, I'm at the middle now, and it's going to be green bead and then white bead. Let me show you where I'm seeing that. See, I'm going, I just built this here. So now I'm just doing green bead and then the white bead. Just really quick, gonna get that on. And 2 more sets of green. And then we're gonna do the top loop. So you see how fast this goes? It's really not a pattern that takes a super, super long time. That's why I thought it would be perfect for this class, because it's got kind of like the fewest number of repeating adds for the brick stitch part, which is the part that I think takes the longest. So yeah, really quick, really good. We'll click right back up to there. Okay, so we just finished row 7. Now we're on row 8. Row 8 is super simple. It's the row that the loop is going to go on. It's all green. We're going to do one more indent, just like we've been doing, right? Because we want to work into the second and third thread bridges here, working from this side. And then we're just going to do 6 beads here at the top and reinforce it. So here we go, just moving over 1. Same trick. We're going to go down through those 2. Pull tight. And then we're going to go under thread bridge. So just go between those 2 beads below. And pull that back up through these 2 here. Okay, we need 4 green beads. 2, 3, 4. And let's work into the third thread bridge here in the line. And we're going to come up through those 2 beads. Pull tight, down back through the first 2. Grab that second thread bridge if I can. I'm trying to do that all in one swoop. We'll head up through these second ones here. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys a little trick I like to do for the loop. We've got that built. There's our top. And you see how this thread here is a little bit on the side, or these beads, they kind of sit to the side a little bit. We need to add a loop, and I'm going to use them to turn to kind of straighten those out. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 beads. Let's go down through just the first bead here. And I'm just going to do this one time, and the rest of the time I'm going to go through both, but let's just go back up through the first one on this side. And so what I did is I kind of split the 2 drop in order to make that go pop together. And now let's go and reinforce this loop. One side, the other side. And down through these 2 beads here. This time I went down through both, right? And then back up. Reinforce that one more time. And we're good. So that's 3 times through. You could do it a 4th time if you wanted to. I'm going to grab some chain nose pliers really quick, or sorry, round nose pliers. And get through those. I've shown this before on some other designs, but I love doing this. You take some round nose pliers and then just make that loop at the top a little bit rounder. And there you go. Feel free to reinforce it another additional pass if you want to. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to weave down now. And then I'm going to show you guys how to do fringe. So we're done with the brick stitch part. It's all set. But with fringe, I have a couple tricks. So I go down with both strands. So this is the rest of my working thread. And I'm going to bring it all the way down here. You can do it now or you can do it later. I'll just go a few beads over. You're going to have quite a bit left. If you did the full 60 inches at the start, or 50, it would have been 50 inches because we started with the 70 there, but just to kind of give or take whatever you have left there. I'm going to do a little turn. And what I'm showing here is also, it's the same thing as weaving in, essentially. You're just changing direction a few times. But I'm doing it to get over to the edge. I want to get to this edge over here. So I'm just weaving over. One more turn so I can get to the place I want to be. Okay, now I'm on this side. So I've got my leftover working thread on this side, and I've got my 70-inch tail on this side. And now I know for sure I'm going to have enough thread to work all of my fringe without having to add. Even if I run out here, I have this over here and I can work back from this side. And that is what I did on the sample that I'm going to show you later. That's worked ahead so we can have like a finished one. But let's go ahead and start adding fringe now. So the first strand of fringe, and I'm going to introduce the pattern and how I follow it to you guys really quick. So How cool is this? It's numbered. It has the numbers on the sides. That's very, very cool. Because then you don't have to sit and count like all this, how many greens, how many lime greens, right? Because it's all here on the side. So I just kind of lay it flat next to me and I bring my ruler over and I work the first strand by just kind of blocking it off so that I can see it. And I'll add all that together. Then I'll move it over when I get to the second strand and work that one and so on. So that's how I'm following it off camera. And that's how I usually follow patterns, and just awesome that it's got the numbers. All right. That really helps a lot. So let's see, I'm going to grab a white bead and I'm just following here. I'm going to grab 2 through 10 as the dark green. So grabbing those right now. Okay, so there's those, and I'm just slide them up to meet the spot. The next thing I need is 2 of the lime green color. Then I need 3 dark green. And this is symmetrical, so whatever side you started on, it's going to be the same strands right up to the center. Another cool bonus, right? So there's the lime green bead. Now I need beads 17 through 22 are going to be green. So 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. That's how I do it. I just kind of count it that way. And then my 23 through 26 are going to be gold. So here's 23, 24, 25, and 26. Got them. Bring those up. Okay, so when you've got your strung fringe, and you can just take a quick look at your pattern, make sure you got it all correct on there. You can do a sum count to check for errors or something like that. And then you just want to bring down the last bead that you added. Bring it down and skip it so that it will lock in your thread and just come back through all the ones above. So I usually bring it way down and kind of pinch it. And then just try to get through as many as I can. It's like I got through almost all of them there. Slide those down. Now let's get through the top 2, 3 maybe. And once you've got through all the strands, what you want to do is go back up through the same place your thread's exiting. So head right back up through these 2 here. And so for now, I'm just going to stay there. I'm putting some weight here. I'm putting some weight right here. And now I'm coming over here and pinching that last bead that we used. I'm going to hold that between my thumb and my finger. And so off camera, what I'm doing is I'm pinching that bead and then pull. And it should pop right into place there. So that's all you got to do. I'm going to do a few more. Let's turn and go down through the next set here. Right down. And what will happen here with this thread, watch, it'll just pop right in. If it's showing at all, if you feel like you can see it, the little jump we did, it probably will just disappear for you like it did for me. But if for some reason it doesn't, you can roll your beads, just kind of hold them and roll them by doing this motion and it'll hide it. So I just kind of spin it. That works for peyote too. So all of those tricks can be handy for fringe too. All right, let's just add the second strand here. So we've got the green. And it takes a minute to count them out, but it is a lot faster with this great numbering system here. So there's my white bead, that's number 5. I need 6 and 7 are my green bead, light green. Here's my 3, 2 lime green ones, regular green. And there's 2 more lime green. One more green. Okay, and then I need 20 through 25. So 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25. There's those. And 3 gold. All right, second strand.
Danielle,
Yeah,
I'm going to interrupt you for just 1 second
go
because
for it.
Marguerite asked the one question I suspected we would get.
Sure.
Can you address how taut your fringe is? Because that is really so important with them looking good.
It is, and you got to take into account a lot of stuff. I'm using a thread that might stretch a little bit, isn't going to stretch too much. The Nymo, I feel like if you're using Nymo like me, you want to pull pretty tight. It's not going to stretch too bad, but it doesn't have a lot of stretch to it, but over time, what you want to avoid having is that gap. I know you guys have seen a lot of really beautiful designs, but there's a gap between the two. So even though it seems like I'm pulling a little tight right now, later on, when I give these a little bit of weight, see how you can run your fingers along. And even after I have a few more strands on, it'll still be possible for, basically you want to have it be sort of so that you're not like cinching up your work, but also so that it still flows. I would say medium to tight tension. So let me show you actually. Okay, so if I pull on this really hard, look what it's doing. It's starting to bend and curl. If it's doing this bendy curly thing, it's too much. It's too tight. So then lay it flat. Just do that for a second. That's about right. You'll feel it. I promise it'll come to you when you're working. Like the first couple times you make them, you'll notice that a lot, and then it'll become second nature to you to kind of figure like it's one of those things that you'll know what it feels like to pull a certain degree of tension after you've tried it a few times. Let me see if I can show it a little better on this second one. So I'll come up through these. I'm just adding them. And I forgot to mention a trick to make sure you didn't miss any. If you lift up your needle underneath, if you've missed a bead, it'll hang down out of plane from the others. So to know you didn't miss one, I'm kind of doing that check as I go. Here's my other bead, kind of pinching. This is also a really good way to check your tension too, is this way that we pull it. So here's the spot we got to go back up through, right? And I'm being as careful as I can not to puncture my thread, but as you can see, I kind of did a little bit back there. That will affect my tension as well. So here's holding this and pulling on this side, right? And so far I'm pulling pretty tight, but see, I'm pinching here, which is putting space between the last beads. And then when I let go and lay it down, just maybe smooth it out. So medium to tight tension. And then trying to smooth it out as you go. And turn and come up. So that's basically fringe in a quick summary. And I hope I answered your question, Marguerite, about the tension. I can always try to answer more specific, like if you have a question where you're working, you can always email me and I can try to answer too. It's one of those things that honestly, I think you'll just it'll feel right to you. Like you'll look at it and you'll be like, yeah, that looks good. That looks right. You could hang it up and suspend it, but do it after every time you add so that you can adjust. Because it's harder to adjust later, to go back and adjust after you've worked over here, you know. But so there's the first two. I have another sample here that is ready to go. So we can have that satisfying moment of pulling up the last fringe strand together. So here's one I worked earlier. And what happened is with the strand, with the 70 inches, I made it about this far. Let me show you. I made it about this far, right? And then I did some weaving in. And then I took my thread that I had over here and I started building from that side in. And now I've got one strand left to go. And I already strung it. We just need to do the turn. So I used this last one as like a little stop bead. So I'm just going to pull it off really quick. Set that there. And let's get our needle on there. My last bead. This is the bead I'm going to use a turn, so I'm just going to hold that in my hand. Okay, let's go back up through this last strand of fringe here. And again, I'm watching to see, making sure I don't miss any beads. Slide those down. And one thing that starts to happen after you've got a bunch built is your thread has a really strong tendency to tangle on the other fringes that are built already. So I'm always kind of trying to fan them out and keep them from tangling. So there's that. From here, I'm going to go up through these two here. These are the last ones. Pinch this end right here. Now let's pull. Making sure I don't tangle on anything. Looking good. Looks okay. All right. And there it is. In a whirlwind, right? We built it. So it came out really good. I'm really happy with it. I'm going to go ahead and just weave in really quick. We showed this a little bit on the way down from our loop, but all you really have to do to weave in your thread is go through a few beads and make a few turns. And it doesn't matter what beads you go through. It will be easier if you go through in columns the way that they were brick stitched, because you'll just have an easier time getting your needle around. Another thing I do is before I pull that loop up, I kind of hold the fringe away, because I was having it happen a lot where on these steps, the loop would grab my fringe and pull it and knot it, and it can be surprisingly challenging to undo that. Just FYI. Had that happen a few times. So before I even do anything, I'm just grabbing all that right there and keeping it out of the way of my loop. Here's a turn. And so on. So that's really all you got to do. That's it. We'll put an ear wire on the top of this one. And then get ready. I'll check in with you guys and see how you're doing. I'm going to just go through a few more here. This is an opportunity also if you want to straighten something out. So like I might come over here and make my edge beads stand up a little better. And that seems like a good spot to trim. I didn't show trimming yet, so let me show that really quick. If you're using scissors, you just want to take your scissors really quick, lift up your strand, right? And then take your scissors and push down with them. And then cut. And it'll make that end kind of pop back into your bead. And then you can take your round nose plier and give that another little pop. And then you'll get your ear wire and some chain nose pliers. So here's my chain nose pliers, and here's an ear wire that I had handy. I'm just going to grab that. And I did a lateral motion to open it. So it was, you take your pliers, you just want to bend in a lateral motion to open that up. Close it back up. Make sure you've got some swing. There it is. And they're so beautiful. These are so fun. Every time I wear these, I get asked about them. Like, where did you get them? I'm like, well, I made them. So you can find the pattern. Or if you, you know, you want to try other colors. I really want to see these in an 11-0 round check. I'm going to try a different colorway later. Excuse me. And hopefully this weekend I can get that done and post it, because I think that's going to be really pretty. I was even thinking of making different, like a pink one maybe, or like a bright red one. Maybe some violet for spring. Okay, so we've got about 8 minutes. I don't know, Kermie, what do you think? Is that enough time, or should I?
Danielle, I accidentally muted you.
No worries. I'm unmuted now.
Sorry, I was unmuting myself as I
That's
sat
okay.
here. Valerie's
No
just
worries.
laughing. I can see her. She loves seeing me make a big mistake.
Aw,
Yes,
Valerie, you're so funny.
I
So cute.
posted on the sidebar. I was wondering if a pair of these were going to be magically mailed to me as a gift, but you never know.
Well, you'll get this pair.
I need the samples. Yes.
Yeah.
Danielle, the sidebar has been wonderful. And so again, if you could do both, read the sidebar and teach the class, you would have noticed a lot of people sent messages to Marta, which
Aw.
was nice, really wonderful to have her in the class. We have had a fair number of people talk about they hate Nymo. So they're sharing tips for maybe working with another thread, even though Nymo is the one thing everybody has to learn how to use at some point. What we talked about earlier today, a lot of people are going to do what you said. They're going to try it in rounds
Yep.
because the
Mhm.
Delicas are definitely different. Danielle, today you actually have a few minutes if you did want to tell people about the amazing March, April that you have planned. So you have an
Yeah.
opportunity to do that too.
Let's do it. So next week we're gonna do a really beginner friendly fun design. It's a daisy chain, and it's springtime, and as a seed beater, daisy chain is something that I just love doing in spring. So this is the next week's class that we'll be doing. It's a daisy chain bracelets, little stacker. These are size 8 check, but feel free to bring your favorite beads. I did put all these colors in the handouts, so in case you love this colorway, you can just do this exact one. So that's next week, next Friday, same time. And then after that, we have a workshop. And it's a really fun stitch up of herringbone stitch, but the focus is going to be on making a little button, a way for you to fasten it. And so this is a really cool way for you to finish your jewelry. If you're into buttons, a lot of you guys collect buttons, I know. So it's a great way to use them. And I found this button in the sewing section at Michael's. So yeah, this came out really nice. I was really happy with that. What else can I show you? I have actually we have April up now. And thanks Maria for posting it in our Facebook group. She posted a link to all of our upcoming classes all in one link, which was very nice. That was really kind. Thank you for doing that. Um, the first one, I'm excited to teach this one, guys, because this is something that is brand new for me as far as the way I develop the patterns and things like that. But we're going to create these little tiles. So it's a part 1, part 2. We're going to create and these are just 4 of the dozen patterns that you'll find when you download the handout. You can put them together in different ways, but essentially the part 1 is we're going to build just the tile part. This is the tile. And then in part 2, we're going to put it together as earrings and a bracelet. So that's why I broke it into 2 parts, because it's going to be like, we're going to really focus on pattern reading and a peyote stitch review for part 1. And then in part 2, we're going to have a lot of fun putting it together. And do check out the patterns, because the patterns are all already there on the website. So you can work ahead if you already know peyote and you want to get ready. Oh, well, thanks, Felicia. Yeah, I can show a little closer. I made a bunch of them. There's like, I didn't make all of them yet, but let's see if I can make that go up a little higher. And these are kind of just ready to go for my demo. But there's a rose, and there's a sunflower and like another bright orange, like a Super Mario flower. So all I can call it is like Super Mario. And then of course, I'm going to teach you how to make a finding. So get your 22 gauge wire handy, because this finding is a way for you to end peyote. And we'll just make one together. So yeah, that's April, the first 2 classes of April. And then I thought we would just take a little gemstone gorgeousness visit through some semi-precious. This is like all the most beautiful amazonite. I brought in some of the 18 karat gold findings and put that all together using a new to me finding, which is a glue-in cap. You see this little glue-in bead cap? I just discovered that you can turn any bead into a beautiful gemstone dangle with it. So how cool. I'm going to show you how to do that, show you how to do this little stitch up, because I had to do a stitching pattern. Why not? This is actually on Wildfire. And then I did some dangly doos. So we're going to do a little bit of wire work, a little bit of everything for that. Get you ready for summer. that's all I've got for now. Until I add a few more, I'm going to try to get, gosh, so we're looking at May. We're almost to May. Isn't that crazy? So yeah, I will post those soon and let you know they're there. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting Marta and visiting her shop. And I'm sure you'll be so excited to see all those beautiful patterns that she has out there. And I will be posting more colors. I'm hoping to spend the weekend doing a little bit of beading myself and having some more gorgeous earrings to wear. And Marta made these. These are her pattern. You can find it in her website. She has lots of finished jewelry as well. So if you want to check that out. All right, I want to wish you a great weekend and happy beading, lots of creativity, and lots of love for you guys. Great weekend.